stellar start to /N, we move into another much awaited segment, a panel discussion on how emerging tech trends are unlocking value to customers, to businesses, and to Bharat. Moderated by Jeyandran Venugopal, Chief Product and Technology Officer at Flipkart. Our panelists today are Lalitesh Katragadda, founder of Indihood and creator of Google Map Maker; Pranav Tiwari, CTO of nurture.farm; Umakant Soni, co-founder and CEO of ArtPark, that's AI and Robotics Technology Park; Rhimjhim Ray, co-founder of Spotle.ai; and Bharath Ram, product head, growth and retention, Flipkart. Everyone, a big round of applause for them, a virtual round of applause. Send in your comments. Over to you all.
Thank you, Anuj. Good morning, everyone. We have a very interesting panel ahead, and I have a set of panelists here who come from such diverse backgrounds, running companies, hard-charging entrepreneurs, as well as technology executives here. And I do believe that we can try and get different perspectives on the table here on this topic, which is very near and dear to my heart in terms of how emerging technology trends are unlocking value for customers, for businesses, and for Bharat. Right. So I have always been an eternal optimist about technology as a transformative tool that will reshape society as we see it. And I hope to be able to bring out various perspectives from all our panelists today. First of all, I wanted to thank all of our panelists for taking out the time and coming here and being part of our tech festival /N. I know all of you have businesses to run and important things that you do in your day jobs, and I really appreciate the time you have been willing to offer for joining us here. Anuj did actually do a brief intro calling out your name and company name and titles, but I would want to just do a round of maybe 30 seconds, a minute each. So you could just talk about a little bit more expanded introduction about yourself, so our audience understand from where you are coming from. So maybe we will start with that. We can go in any order. Maybe we'll start with Umakant. You want to go first?
Fantastic. Thanks, Jay, for inviting me here. Very quickly, I've spent almost close to 20 years in technology space. Last 12 years in AI as an entrepreneur. I built the first AI chatbot company out of India, and then set up the first AI-focused fund called Pi Ventures. And last 3 years, I've been actually working very closely with the government, trying to actually do a massive revamp of AI research and innovation ecosystem. And as part of that, we have set up ArtPark, AI and Robotics Technology Park, which is promoted by Institute of Science and funded with seed grant from DST and Department of Science and Technology and Government of Karnataka to the tune of 230 crores. And very specifically, we are looking at how do we take the fruits of AI and robotics revolution inclusively to the billions, not just in India, but globally, especially in the developing world.
Thank you, Umakant. Pranav, over to you.
Hi, hello everyone. This is Pranav. I've been involved in technology for the last 20-25 years, with my initial years being with some of the MNCs and larger companies, but in the last 10 years or so, I've primarily been focused on various startups. The most recent one that I've gotten into is trying to solve problems that small farmers face with technology-led solutions. We believe that technology can indeed solve several of the key challenges that bottom of the pyramid and those untouched with technology currently face. And our mission is to make the agri ecosystem sustainable and viable.
Thank you. Lalitesh?
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. So I have also been a technology and a geek by training and by passion. Started my journey as an aerospace engineer, and then spent some time learning design and mechatronics, and then robotics. CS and physics were my passions from childhood. So I actually never did a CS degree, though CMU gave me a degree. So for the past 30 years, I've been engaged in various platform building exercises. Most of that was spent at Google, where Pranav and I worked together briefly for a while and built the world's maps at Google with a wonderful team, all was done in Bangalore. And since I left Google, we've been imagining and building a cloud. We as in Indihood has been building a cloud which hopes to democratize platform building and make them accessible, so that the next 5 billion for whom the world is not really building platforms like Pranav is doing, we can have thousands of those built far more easily than they are today. And I also spend some of my time on technology policy. This is my pro bono time. Have been fortunate to be engaged with people like Sharat Sharma, Nandan, and the entire Bangalore ecosystem, and also a little bit in Delhi. Most recently did Arogya Setu. So, yeah.
Awesome. Rhimjhim?
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Thanks for having me here, and great to be part of this very elite panel. I'm Rhimjhim. I've been in technology for the last 17 years, more specifically marrying business and technology together. And I believe that every business in today's world, probably even your local milkman who takes orders on WhatsApp or messages you to say that he's going to be late. I think every business is a digital first business. So we built Spot in the last 6 years. I've been an entrepreneur. We built Spotle.ai, which is India's first AI-powered career platform, which focused on millennial career discovery, focused on simplifying early stage careers. We've been working closely with governments, including Meghalaya, Mizoram, and a number of other state governments too, in making sure that skill building and 21st century skills assessment, 21st century skill building starts early on. Before that, I have had a long technology career across India, across Europe. I worked for a long time out of London. So that's me in a gist, and hoping to learn from all of you here.
Thank you, Rhimjhim. Bharat, over to you.
Hey Jay, thanks for inviting me over. Hey all. I also have about 20 plus years of experience in the tech industry. At Flipkart, I'm focusing on problems that make work easier for the next 200, next 500 million people to come on board Flipkart and start purchasing e-commerce and making their journey easy and their experience easy. That's the area of focus. Thanks.
Thank you. As all of you can see, I think we indeed have a very, very accomplished panel, and I'm really excited about the conversations that are going to follow. Okay, so when we talk about emerging technologies, right? So we talk about various things, right? Of course, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all the derivative variants of it, be it maybe computer vision or self-learning systems through reinforcement learning and so on and so forth. We also talk about robotics and drone tech, autonomous vehicles, and all of that. And of course, now we hear a lot more about metaverse, augmented reality, virtual reality, immersive worlds, and all that. And we also have been hearing for a while and seeing real use cases in the world around blockchain, even beyond just cryptocurrencies, right? Blockchain, Web3, NFTs, decentralized finance, and all of that stuff, right? So it seems like every few months there is a technology that is coming around the corner, which seems to have the potential to completely reimagine industries as we know it, and as the industries have operated for decades now, right? So how real are these technologies in terms of day-to-day impact that they're already creating on businesses, right? So that probably would be the first one I would want to start with and get each of your perspectives in the areas that you work in. Maybe you can talk about some actual use cases where you've deployed these technologies, not just as POCs, but at scale, and how they've given you that edge that you would not have been able to get by using mainstream proven traditional technologies, right? So some of the new technologies are giving you tools that make some things possible which were never possible in the earlier eras. So with that, I will turn it over to each of our panelists for a couple of minutes each. You can maybe describe maybe 1 or 2 use cases like that and how you have deployed some of these emerging technologies. So Umakant, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think, one of the really interesting things that I would actually like to take a step back and talk about, and this is a very fundamental shift that we're talking about here. So if you look at 1975, which was the peak of the industrial economy was like basically about selling access production of one place to another, right? So at that point of time, the total assets were around $715 billion, okay? And the intangible was close to $120 billion, but tangible was, close to $600 billion, right? So you can see the ratio was like 1:5, right? If you cut to 2005, which when at that point of time, we had connected like 500 million people with, internet, email, social media, the ratio completely flipped. So the intangibles, out of the total, $12 trillion or so, intangibles were close to $9.2 trillion, and the tangibles were like 1/4 of that, right? Close to $2 trillion, right? And that was the knowledge economy, right? You could sell the excess knowledge of one person to another, right? Now, where we are actually stepping into with these emerging technologies is what I call experience economy, where you will be actually connecting in another, 10 years time, 5 billion people, which will be connected with 50 billion intelligent devices, right? And it's interesting, the ratio of tangible to intangible will become like, 10:1. So intangibles will be 10 times more than the tangible one. And it's a very fundamental perspective, because what I see is massive opportunity for India to take a leap ahead, right? Now, three fundamental things that I think are very, very critical. One is just the connectivity part, right? See, if the 10 times the value is going to be built in the digital domain and we don't have connectivity for half of the population of India, that's not going to cut it. And with connectivity, I talk about physical as well as digital connectivity, right? So that is very, very fundamental. We are trying to build a new model for 5G, which is about public 5G. How do you decentralize telcos? I mean, give the power of connectivity to panchayats and take advantage of the Bharat net. The second part that I see, which is very, very important and critical, is how do we keep our people healthy, right? Healthcare. How do we unlock it in a way so that even in the distant Bharat, you are actually able to access the best quality of healthcare that is possible in probably in a city like Bangalore, where I live. So we actually, piloted out a very interesting experiment called X-ray Setu, where we said, okay, especially in COVID wave 2, we were like so frustrated that, hey, we are sitting with, bunch of, AI and robotics, specialists, and we're still not able to help people who are dying in the remotest corner of India. So we launched this interesting app, which was based on WhatsApp. It was a chat bot. You could take a picture of X-ray, send it to us, and we could send you a report in like less than 5 minutes, right? And it saved so many lives. We actually got testimonial, which just really moved the whole team. And we realized that we need to build the healthcare with the perspective of Bharat first, right? Not Bangalore first. And this is a very fundamental perspective. Third case that I see is in education, right? So if you really want to develop the potential of the brains of this country, we really need to unlock them to take advantage of this experience economy that's actually going to come up. And for that, we really need to rethink how human beings are learning, taking inspiration from how machines are learning faster. So whether it is self-supervised learning, where it is peer-to-peer learning with GANs, whether it is project-specific learning. So we actually are piloting out something very interesting called Project Eklavya, where we actually ran two batches of kids. We exposed them to one, curiosity-driven learning, second, peer-driven learning, where kids become teachers for others. And what we realized that if you couple it with in the context learning, where we can provide the context and learning with that, and make the learning loop shorter, we could really unlock the full potential of the kids. And that, I feel, these are the three critical layers where I see that the technology is actually going to really play a huge role, especially taking the impact to the remotest corners of India.
Absolutely. Those are very interesting examples, Umakant. I think I fully agree. Education, healthcare, the opportunities are endless. In my past life, I have been a healthcare entrepreneur as well, as you are aware of, right? So, and telemedicine was my thing in those days. And now, great to see the example you cited around X-rays and doing teleradiology, so to speak, right? To be able to solve for needs of people in remote areas. So that's fantastic to hear. And you talked about how the ratio is shifting between the tangible to intangible. I think one more interesting thing to note there is if you look at even how companies are getting valued by public markets today, right? You can see that like companies that are betting on emerging technologies, who are leading the charge, are getting valued so much more than their peers who may have much larger scale in terms of their top line, even bottom line, right? And there is no better example of this than Tesla, right? Like if you look at Tesla, I think they put the stake on the ground saying, hey, we will actually create completely autonomous self-driving car tech and invest in battery tech before it was cool. And now, I mean, their market cap is bigger than the next 10 biggest world auto manufacturer market leaders market cap combined, right? So that's another kind of vindication or validation of how the world sees this shift happening. So great example.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, just to add to what you said about Tesla, in fact, it's very interesting how Tesla started selling their cars. So they actually had this insane mode button, they call it. So if you press it, the car just like zooms, right? And they gave this experience, I call it experience of this car being just the next generation and ahead of their peers, right? So that comes back to that point that we're talking about, that experience economy, and that's a huge, like we did with the supportive policies of government. We were able to capture a bit of a pie with the knowledge economy, which built out our middle class. But if you look at if we can capture this experience economy, we're talking about the connected man machine ecosystem. I think it will be game changing, and not just for India, which is living in Bangalore, but we're talking about India that is living in small corners of India. One of the interesting things that I forgot to talk about was avatar robotics, where we're trying to experiment with, like if there is a possibility where people could sit in maybe in northern part of Uttar Kannada, and they could drive a truck in Australia, right? Or maybe a nurse could be sitting in Kerala and taking care of an elderly patient in Japan. So we were trying to build these avatar robotic nurse and whole horizontal platform for that, because that could really unlock the economy. Not just right now rural economy is focused on agriculture, but we could actually shift the base there, and without people having the need to migrate.
Makes sense. Lalitesh, over to you. I think in Indihood, you're trying to create platforms that scale for 1 billion Indians, and you also built, for example, Avanti Finance on top of that platform to enable people in completely different ways, right? So would love to hear any examples you can think of, or where you have seen them applied, the emerging technologies being applied for business use cases.
Yeah, a couple of simple examples, Jay. So this partnership we have with Avanti, where we are trying to solve financial inclusion. The first step of financial inclusion is trying to get loans to people who are not able to get loans. So we are going after the bottom of the pyramid. And currently about 60% of the people we are giving loans to have never received a loan before, ever in their life in the formal economy. And we are doing it, the digital way, touchless, presenceless, cashless. Money goes into their account and so on. But the interesting thing is, one way we are able to do this is not by our own team on the ground. We create the platform, we spend a couple of days training the local elders of the community. We identify communities carefully, and we empower the elders, and they essentially operate the bank. So they're essentially operating a core banking system without realizing that they are, right? So it is that metaphor where the world doesn't need banks, it needs banking, right? And if you embrace that metaphor, then everybody can be banked. But at the same time, I think we have barely scratched the surface, right? So let me talk about the dream that is unfulfilled yet, which is where we are heading towards, hopefully. If you take a look at the farmer, right, as a risk and asset base, right? The average Indian farmer, even the small and marginal farmer, has 1.2 or to 1.4 hectares, depending on the state. That's about 2 odd acres. And the value of that land, even in a conservative case, the bottom quartile is, somewhere between 15 to 25 lakhs. And we as a nation, as an entire industry, the MFI industry, struggle to give them 30, 50,000 rupees of loans. And when we give them that loan, it is, we think we have done a great job if we give it to them at 18%. Most of the industry is giving them loans at 25%, right? While they're sitting on an asset base of 15 to 25 lakhs, right? So can we move to a future where their land has been digitized, not just, the paper has been moved digital, but actually digitization of the land boundary, and a new construct has come in where the ownership of the land is guaranteed, and they are able to trade and create a e-mortgage, right? And then, I mean, my goal is, organizations like, Indihood, Avanti should not exist, right? We should be able to trivially give them loans based on any asset you have, because if the farmer says, look, if you give me, a 50,000 rupee loan, I will use it for whatever I use it for, but, I will, create a fraction of my land and mortgage it to you, right? And we should be able to give them loans at 5%, because that is the lowest risk loan I'll ever give. When you and I take a home loan, we are, mortgaging 80% of the home. They only they only need to mortgage 10% to get what they want, right? So that is a shift that needs to happen. And similarly, when the other in my public journey, when we did Arogya Setu, we had this very interesting construct that we actually captured. When you were using it, we were capturing the location when people reported symptoms, right? So the Bluetooth thing was, all the public furor and so on. But the most interesting part was the symptom reporting that people were doing of their own volition. And when we mapped those symptoms on the map, right, purely crowdsourced, purely, no curation, nothing. People just reported the symptoms. We took it as is, no questions asked, and we mapped it, and we did, very, very basic machine learning, right? We first did statistical analysis, not even machine learning. We basically got rid of the outliers and so on at a regional scale, at an aggregated scale. And we did basic machine learning. This was a collaboration with Kamakoti at IIT Madras. And we found that, 40% of the hotspots we were able to find were not discoverable by doing tracking and tracing, right? And our accuracy of predicting hotspots before they happened was something like 97%, right? And this new science that came up called syndromic mapping, which is syndromic surveillance, used to be this science where, medical workers would go and figure out, hey, where is the disease happening and so on and so forth. That's never going to scale in a country like India, and never going to work in an economy like India, where you don't have, trillions of dollars to spend. But if you want to do it on the cheap, literally for zero, right? Other than launching the app and a shout out by the PM, we got nothing else to go on, right? We were able to track, and predict the thousands of hotspots before they happened. And some states did amazing work with that. And it's very humbling to see that when you build the right technology platforms, right? Like this, core banking system or this medical system, the work you do is 2%, right? The work the community does to bring it to life and make use of it is 98%. So the shift where you are actually activating the community intelligence that is there, the collective intelligence of the community that is there on the ground, right? Activating it and bringing that to life, where there are these design principles called, agency and affordance, right? I like to say there is a third design principle that we have yet to, embrace as society, called nativance. There is inherent capacity in society. You don't need to train people, you need to bring it to life, right? They already have that capacity. You just give them the tool and they bring it to life, right? So that is, I hope that is how, and so that some of the approaches we and our counterparts all across India will use to light up Bharat.
Fantastic examples, Lalitesh. I think inclusive finance, healthcare, I think lots of very interesting use cases that you highlighted. Since you also pointed out use cases around small farmers and agriculture and creating inclusion for them, that naturally leads me to Pranav as the next person that I will call upon. So with nurture.farm, of course, Pranav is deeply in that world and trying to use technology as a disruptor to reimagine how farming gets done in the country, right? How inclusion actually takes a completely new meaning. So Pranav, over to you.
Thank you, Jay, and thank you, Lalit, for bringing the challenges that the small farmers face on a day-to-day basis. And that's essentially what drew me to this ecosystem and trying to figure out. All my life, I've been building technology, but I've been building technology for people for whom millions of others are also building technology. What happens when this technology really fails to solve the problems for about half the population in India? And then that's essentially what I was looking at. If you look at the rural economy, the penetration of technology remains almost abysmal. And as Lalitesh says, most of the Indian farmers are under 3 acres, which basically means that while their assets are large, the decision making always happens at a micro level. Why is there no penetration of mechanization or specialized mechanization in India? Why is there no penetration of any decision support system based farming in India? Why is fertilizer not optimized for a specific soil, but everybody goes and puts 4 bags of urea and 2 bags of DAP per acre? All the answers eventually come from the fact that when a farmer is making these decisions, he's only deciding about his 3 acres, and he doesn't have the resources that help him make that decision in the same way that an industrialized farmer will be doing. So if you look at a very large farm somewhere in Idaho, the guy would be testing his soil samples from multiple points, eventually deciding what is the optimal composition of fertilizers to use, what is the optimal seed variety to use, and so on. And none of this support system exists for a farmer in India. In fact, the only mechanization he has access to is the machines or the instruments that can be attached to a tractor. None of the specialized machines, even like sprayers and so on, are available to him, because a 3-acre farmer will probably use that for 2 days in a season, and the rest of the season it will be lying idle catching rust. So our focus is to essentially figure out what platform we can build that brings all the agri ecosystem into the digital world, where now the modern solutions that we have built for all the other ecosystems, we can start applying them here. For example, we have created, or Uber has created, a great platform for shared economy. Now the cars which were only accessible to the middle class and upper middle class people in India, now everybody has access to mobility via a car, just because the cost of that resource is amortized across many rides rather than the 2 rides in a day. That's the difference that technology can make in terms of bringing solutions which are expensive in a cost-effective manner to a much broader section of society. And that's the first approach we've taken. We've created a platform by which we now offer our mechanization service to 5 million acres of farmers in India. Now that's a transformative access for many of these farmers, because as the labor costs are rising, the viability of agriculture as a source of livelihood itself is under question, because the cost of commodities and the ROI is not rising at the same level at which the cost of labor at the lower is rising for the farmers. I can totally foresee that unless there is a substantial mechanization in India over the next 5 to 10 years, most of the farmers will not be able to afford the cost of labor that would prevail in India in 5 to 10 years. So what is the solution? You need to figure out how the technologies like mechanization, like optimal seed selection, optimal fertilizers, and so on, how that can be brought to the farmers. And that's been our focus. Our focus is essentially to create meaningful, cost-effective shared economy solutions that bring these technologies to really the tiniest of the farmers.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Pranav. I think food safety is something that we all take for granted when it is one of the sectors that is severely challenged. And it is great to see passionate entrepreneurs like you caring about that problem and thinking about how to apply technology for good in lowering cost of doing business for these small farmers, how to increase yields and make it indeed a profitable venture, which will make sure that our civilization continues to thrive and grow, right? So there can be no worthy mission, no more worthy mission than this. So thanks a lot for all the work that you and your team are doing there. So now I'll turn it over to Rhimjhim. So in terms of your platform, Spotle, Rhimjhim, you're trying to enable millennials and kickstart their careers. And how are you envisioning and applying emerging technologies for your use cases?
Right. I'll to answer that question, I'll take a step back. Not just Spotle. I think the best thing that has happened, I think in the last 10 years or so, or a little over 10 years, really, since Web 2.0 started happening, is technology has really become democratic. It has helped. So earlier, if you have to start a business, and I wanted to have a website on, I wanted to have put technology in place. You had to put in bulky servers. You had to basically invest in a very expensive technology stack. What has happened now, and I'm going to talk about the ABC of technology, which I think is extremely meaningful for the kind of world we are living in. We're talking about moving from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0. And I call this the AI, blockchain, and cloud, the ABC of technology. I think cloud has been a game changer, when I have AWS, and we use AWS extensively, we're using AWS to, skill millennials. We have taken that platform also to schools. We're working with state governments. We're working with partners. So, so the cloud has not just us, cloud has helped democratize thousands of small businesses. Now, if I have to, like say I'm a barber shop in Bandra and I want to put up a nice website, I don't have to invest in servers, or I do not have to invest in expensive technology stack. The cloud is right up there, platforms like a GoDaddy have billions on top of it. So I guess this democratization started with the cloud. Blockchain, again, another very interesting example. And again, I'm taking a step back from my work life to my personal life. Here, I've got a 6-year-old, and she does, excellent drawings, and she imagines all kinds of things. And then the other day she came and told me, I guess, some amount of inspiration we've been able to pass on. Mama, I want to set up a drawing company and I want to sell my drawings and I want to make money. I was like, okay, great. Then I think we hit up on the idea of NFTizing her drawings. And I'm not just saying it because, well, I guess all proud mamas say it. Some of her drawings are really, really good, very imaginative. She imagines all kinds of treasure hunts and all of it. So, so I think blockchain has put the power of in the hand of the creator. We're living in a creator economy, a creator-led economy, where everyone, it's not just the, the big labels or the big producers who are creating or facilitating creation. Right now with the internet and with the blockchain giving you rights, giving you DRM rights to your own creation, we are putting the hands in the, we are putting power in the hand of each creator. You not necessarily have to be signed on by a big label, to make my work famous. Or I don't have to be not necessarily been picked up by a HarperCollins to get my book out there. I guess a blockchain has really, really democratized and, put the power, as I said, in the hand of the creator. The last one in my ABC, as I started backward from CV and AI, I guess, why AI becomes important. Obviously, with creator economy and the democratization of technology, it means we are, kind of pushing millions and millions of data points out there. Now, it's AI which is helping them making sense of this data and surfacing the patterns that are really important. Very important, when you have got this explosion of content, I guess AI plays that very important filtration role here. Of course, we could talk about biases, we could talk about prejudices, we could talk about ethics, but I'd probably park that for a later discussion. I'll give you an example. We work a lot in the in the field of early stage career discovery and recruitment. And we have seen that AI has helped surface talents in tier 2, tier 3 colleges. These colleges are often overlooked in traditional placements. The best jobs goes to the IITs and the regional engineering colleges. And of course, they're definitely producing very good talents. But there are probably people who didn't do so well in an exam, but who might be extremely talented in a specific skill area. And I think, the future of work is going to be skill-based. It's not just going to be degree-based. I think we're going to take a step ahead from degree-based to skill-based hiring, skill-based working. And there, again, AI plays a very important role. I was so happy. We did this fully automated hiring drive on one of the largest tech companies. We ran it online. There are people competing from all across, right? From an IIT to a tier 3 college. Even, I'll also say, I'll be honest, I'd also not heard the names. Finally, with AI grading their projects, etc., there were a lot of parameters that the AI was looking at. We saw there's some very interesting pockets of talents, in specific skills being surfaced from a college in maybe a very small town in Tamil Nadu. Even I had not even heard about the town's name. So here AI becomes important, in finding, when you have got this democratization of technology and democratization of content and democratization of data, AI needs to play that role of being the filter. As I said, you need AI to still bubble up the most meaningful data from all the data explosion that is happening now. So as I said, I think this ABC is basically democratizing. I've been hearing the views of the other panelists in terms of the next billion, putting the power in the hands of the milkman or the, the creator or the small artist, in a suburban town. That is what this ABC of technology can deliver for us. And that is where I see the power of tech.
Absolutely. Fantastic, Rhimjhim. I think the ABCs of the emerging technologies and how they are democratizing access and inclusivity. Fantastic examples. And who knows, I think the people of India could be a 6-year-old for all we know, right? So all power to you and your daughter for pursuing that even further. So with that, I will now turn over to Bharat. Bharat, in your work, you see hundreds of millions of consumers accessing Flipkart's platforms, and you are in charge of both design as well as user acquisition and retention areas for us. So how do you see emerging technologies and their power to impact Bharat at scale?
Thanks, Jay. So in the previous session, there was this conversation around trust and how trust in online commerce is very important for middle income people, especially people who have low disposable money or income to actually spend on items. So if you take the example of, let's say, an officer in State Bank of India, which is what my father was. And I often think if I can convince my father to buy online, I can pretty much convince anyone. There is like, they have probably 10,000, 12,000 rupees to buy a sofa for the living room. And if they go through the entire process of purchasing it and they find out that the sofa is too big or too small for their living room, and they have to go through the hassle of returning it, or take another example of, let's say, a Symbiosis college student who has about 200, 300 rupees of disposable money to buy, let's say, a lifestyle beauty makeup kit, and they invest in like a makeup kit or a lipstick and find out it's the wrong color. It's quite frustrating, and it's kind of a breakage of trust as far as online commerce. So if like, plug in AR technology where, let's say, the same example of the State Bank of India officer, they can kind of like switch their camera to their living room. It will automatically show, it will place virtually the sofa on the living room. They can find out if the sofa fits in their living room, if the color fits. They can even like try on various shades of like, sofa covers. Similarly with this Symbiosis student example, you can virtually try on a lot of like, shades of lipstick or makeup or eyeglasses or jewelry before and develop the confidence that it will actually work for your use case before actually making a decision to purchase. So this is a classic case in which technology can actually, instill a level of trust before a person makes a purchase decision. And once they make their first purchase and that turns out to be a happy purchase, then they continue purchasing and trusting online commerce. So this is essentially where technology comes in and helps people make, both budgetary purchase decisions for their personal lives.
Absolutely, Bharat. I think in terms of creating more informed purchase decisions and how technologies like augmented reality, even personalization and AI can be applied towards the trust building exercise is a very important lever for us as a business. So I think that's very well put. So with that, we only have 3 minutes left. So we don't have time for going into more questions, but I do want to use the 3 minutes to maybe have some fun, right? Like, so all of you are up for it, I hope, right? So basically what I want to ask is this. So let's say that you were asked to pick a particular emerging technology theme to create both a utopia movie, science fiction movie, and also a dystopian movie, right? You have to pick one technology. So what would that technology you would pick for creating your utopian vision of the future, and what would be that one dystopian vision that you will pick? For example, for dystopian vision, you could say my version of Cars movie, Cars 4, could be a autonomous car gone rogue, right? So something like that. So just it's a fun thing. Maybe 30 seconds each. Whenever somebody is ready with anything, you can share. You can share more than one as well, but you have to pick one technology, right? For each of these, right? So floor is open. Whoever is ready to go can go.
Yeah, I'll probably go first and warm the room up a little bit. I'll just pick a remake of WALL-E or WALL-E Part 2, where people actually don't leave their homes and start to live in the metaverse, and most of the goods are digital. This is actually for introverts who don't want to meet other people. This is a utopian movie, but for extroverts, this is a dystopian movie. So it's both movies into one.
Good one. I think for a particular cohort, it will be utopia. For the others, it will be dystopia. That's fantastic. Good. So anyone else has any other interesting ideas on your science fiction remakes?
So I'll take a shot at it. I'm not very creative, so whatever idea I can think of, I think has already been had. I'm getting flashes of both Blade Runner and Asimov's Foundation series, right? While I think through this, but I think one thing I'll just leave you guys with is, and the same set of technologies can cause both dystopia and utopia depending on how they are utilized. And Asimov brings it out very well. But I will leave you with this word BARN, BARN, bio, astro, robo, and nano. These are the 4 technologies, and the confluence of them will define the next 100 years. If we use them right, we will have a lush green earth, and people will be, 3-4 billion people will be thriving. If we mess with it, we will have scorched earth and scorched space. So probably worse than Blade Runner. So I'll leave you with that.
Interesting, Lalit. By the way, I am a big fan of the Asimov Foundation series as well, and Harry Seldon, all-time favorite character of mine, of course, a protagonist in the series, right? So, fantastic one for everyone who hasn't heard about it to go read up about it. So, anyone else, if you want to just throw something out there?
So I love to be an optimist all the time. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I love to be an optimist all the time, and I'll take one simple example of where technology can make such a fundamental difference in things that are going completely wrong today. We all know about all the crop burning that happens in the north. If you know that typical rice stubble has about 2.5 tons of carbon in it, so when you light a fire, you are essentially emitting 2.5 tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere per acre. And if you look at what the value of that carbon is in terms of carbon credits, which is currently selling at about $15 per ton or per credit. Typically, a farmer is being forced today to light fire to about $30-$35 per acre, which is significantly a fairly significant amount of money. Now, this is something I believe technology can solve for him. What we were able to do with half a million acre of farmland this year was to essentially do exactly that. Instead of lighting fire, we were able to turn that into compost that gets mixed into the soil, enriching the soil, reducing fertilizer need, and earning carbon credits for the farmer. Now, to me, technology has these solutions. It's for us to discover them, find them, and more importantly, take it to the farmer. No single farmer who owns 3 acres farmland has the ability to go trade his carbon credits in the carbon markets. But as a digital platform, as a technology platform, we can create those opportunities. So I'm looking for technology to go solve these fundamental problems for real people and turn, as Lalitesh says, turn this earth into a lush green paradise.
Just very interesting.
I have one quick interesting bit to add here. I think I really like the way all of you approached it. So when electricity was actually first invented and was starting to get used, people were afraid to use it in the night because they thought that it will actually attract the wolves. So any technology, and probably that has not happened. I mean, we are living proof of that. Any technology new, especially, I think people like to imagine where it could go wrong, but it will probably not go wrong because otherwise we wouldn't be here. I think human beings are very interesting, self-regulating, mechanism built in with a reflective loop, and so that's why I'm very, I share Pranav's perspective that I'm also a techno-optimist. Having said that, I think it's important to aim for building a sustainable man-machine future. So I would like to quote Asimov that whether you're or Arthur C. Clarke, actually, that might be better, that whether you're made up of carbon or silicon, it shouldn't matter in the future. You both should be treated with equal respect.
Absolutely interesting. Very good vision for all of us, turning into part machine, part organic cyborgs, I suppose. I will definitely look forward to that future. Rhimjhim, we will close with your thoughts and comments on this.
Yeah, so I have got a slightly crazy take on this. I am waiting for my own version of Meta Bharat. I'm waiting to see a Mahabharat play out in the metaverse. And maybe instead of Arjun taking on the Kauravas, why doesn't he take on all these, the avatars, maybe the NFT versions of a Mogambo or an Ajit, I think that would be real fun. We have had such interesting Bollywood villain characters, and marrying that with the Mahabharat, with with avatars and metaverse available to us, I think we can have absolute amount of fun with that. And I'm also thinking for my 6-year-old here, and she would love it. She keeps doing all these cartoons all the day. So yeah, I guess
very, very
we should have some fun with tech also. Yeah, I guess.
Absolutely. You should go write that script first, digitize it, put an NFT out for that script in the first place. I think it's very, very interesting indeed. So there you go, folks. That is our panel. I hope that all of you equally enjoyed as well as derived a lot of insights and inspiration from all of the leaders that we have been able to bring to our panel today. With that, turning it back over to you, Anuj.
Thank you.